Now that we have a basic idea of mechanical perspective, let's apply that to actually using the system to create a simpler way of drawing a more involved scenic ground plan. We have the same proscenium we just talked about in mechanical perspective. We have the picture plane, we have the station point, and we have drawn two other lines to represent a drawing of the proscenium and dropping it down to create a proscenium opening in which we're going to physically look at our scenic design. So here's our scenic design. First of all, try something different. We could move the station point over and have a different view of the set. We can put it anywhere we want. That becomes our new line. So we'll move the station point over there. And that's going to be the line on which we will have our vanishing point on the horizon line. Notice that the horizon line has been drawn through the proscenium opening. It's about 6 to 10 feet. We want to see a little bit of floor of our stage. We need to grid out the floor plan on the stage so we can transfer it down into the picture plane. We're going to draw lines going straight from the picture plane at 2-foot increments. And we're going to also draw horizontal lines, and we'll label each of those. We'll make all the verticals an alphabet, and all the horizontals numbers. So we now have a grid. We have to take that grid that we just drew up above and put it into the picture plane and draw it into perspective. We'll find the vanishing point for our station point on the horizon line. We're going to then drop all of those vertical lines straight down. We only need where they touch the ground line of the picture plane. And then we're going to vanish each of those straight up into the vanishing point on the horizon line. That has now established all of our vertical lines. Now our problem is, how do we transfer the horizontal lines 1 through 9? So we're going to find a square by drawing a diagonal on our grid from the back corner down. We can do it either direction we want to, but it makes most sense to do it across our station point where we're actually viewing the image. Please note that this diagonal line intersects every point that the vertical and the horizontal lines meet on the grid. The next point is really kind of arbitrary. If we take the distance of our station point to our proscenium, which is usually about 30 to 40 feet, we will then apply that over sideways from our vanishing point out towards the right and find a point. We also want to transfer where our diagonal line in our ground plan is at H, and we're going to draw now from H to that new point that we just drew. What we've now done is we have created that diagonal line that we had up from H up to the back corner of the grid, and we have transferred it down onto our front view. Now, wherever that line crosses one of our vertical lines, H, I, J, K, L, every one of those intersections is the point where a horizontal line goes across. So we can now draw in our horizontals, and we will number them 1 through 9. We have now transferred that grid above onto our front view in full perspective. We also want to go along the vertical line down below and draw in a 2-foot measurement line. Now, we should have all the marks we need to be able to start drawing our actual scenic design below in our perspective grid. We now transfer each of the points from the grid above down to the grid below. We now have the floor plan drawn out in full perspective. Look at that again. Look at the ground plan above. We have now transferred point by point the ground plan onto the perspective grid. We will use the two major lines of that to vanish out and find vanishing points left and right. Note the red line. We want to transfer the very back point of the set and drop it down to the picture plane. We do that by drawing a line from the vanishing point through the point until it touches the picture plane between J and K. We then know that that wall is 18 feet high, so we're just going to draw a line out. And then we're going to come from the point between J and K on the picture plane up to that 18-foot mark. That would be that very back corner of the set if it were standing out on the picture plane. We will now vanish the top of that line back to the vanishing point. And now if we go clear back to the point on stage and draw a line up, we will stop at where that vanishing line tells us we need to stop. Let's remove all the other lines, and that is now the back corner of our set. So let's do the next corner. Close to G on 5, we're going to drop that through the vanishing point, bring it down to the picture plane just before G. We're going to measure it up to 18 feet again also, vanish it back down, and then we will draw a line up from that point up to where the red line tells us we need to stop, and we will note that we now have created one of the walls of our theater. Please note that they both vanish off to vanishing point right. Let's take that same corner of the wall and let's vanish it off to vanishing point left. If we now draw a line up between those two, we have completed that wall. We can then create the rest of it using the floor plan and using the correct vanishing point to quickly establish all of our wall units. We're going to drop a point of the stair using the vanishing point up center, drop down to the picture plane between J and K. We note that that step unit is 4 feet high. So from the JK point on the picture plane, we draw up. There's the blue line to show you, stopping at 4 feet. And then we're going to vanish that back up to the vanishing point, finishing that off using the vanishing point right and left. We can draw in a door using the vanishing point left because any object on a wall will use its vanishing point. We can draw a window using the vanishing point right. I'm going to zoom in and show you actually how to find now the center of that window. If you draw X's from each of the corners of the rectangle, they will find true center for you. We can now draw the vertical and the horizontal mullions of that window. With that in mind, we've now added the chair and the table using the vanishing points to complete our scenic design. This perspective grid method allows us to transfer the ground plan more quickly onto the stage and then move points up and down to the picture plane for true measurement and then moving them back up to get the perspective height.